Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode on the Lessons from the Game podcast. I'm joined with my co-host, Ben Pegna, and today we'll be talking about don't let your title define you. After many conversations with myself and Ben, we finally decided to talk about this because this is something which we are both passionate at the moment, and we do believe there are so many gems and insights that we can share with you guys. But just be a bit patient. Let me just touch base with my man. I haven't spoken to him in a while, just to see how he's doing. Ben, how are you doing, brother?
Gee, I'm really good, mate. Yeah, it's hot. It's been hot here, about 30 degrees in London. Not as hot as you in Toulouse and La Rochelle, but it's been good. I've been really buzzing this week. Did a couple of guest coaching sessions, but were really good. Managed to take my youngest son along with me as well, so that's always fun. And yeah, as some people saw, I got a few comments. Had a couple of burgers along the way.
Post, man. It was brilliant.
and also I'm buzzing because we got to interview Corné Krige, and that was I'm genuinely, there's a couple of our interviews that we've done where I've really enjoyed them more than I ever thought I would, just speaking to somebody, asking them questions, if I'm honest, and that was one of them, because there were so many unexpected insights and gems that I wasn't really prepared for, and that was incredible. And I've been reflecting a lot on a lot of the conversation we had with Corné.
Oh, man, there's so much going on at the moment, and I was super pumped. I really enjoyed that episode with Corné, and as I mentioned online as well, he still is one of my heroes, and I really looked up to him as a youngster, and having the opportunity to interview him on our podcast was just massive. And yeah, Ben, from my side, but on a working holiday here in La Rochelle, so just taking some time to wrap up a few things and make sure that I'm still getting things done, and also spending some time with my daughter. Still need to go for a run later today. Didn't train yesterday, took a day off. So super pumped about this topic, and I think there's loads to dive into. But quickly, Ben, I want to share something with you. I didn't share it with you earlier. One of the members of my community, so on my Scrum community, not just the latest one on school. And he has sent us a message, and I just thought I'd share it with you. So obviously, Ben, he's gone on a new journey now. He'll be doing a lot of mentoring and Scrum coaching in South Africa. And he said, your guys' mentoring and listening to your podcast have really made me aware of what I can achieve. And thanks to you and Coach Ben, I have changed paths. I'll keep on praying for both of you, as well as you're really part and partial of my new journey, and that your journeys may also be great. That just gave me goosebumps.
Yeah. How good is that? Thanks, man. Yeah, that's a nice surprise. I wasn't expecting that. That's. I love it when we get the feedback, when you think, and it's a bit like that starfish story, which some people might ridicule. It's that boy on the beach, and there's thousands of starfish being washed up on the beach, and he throws one back in, and someone says to him, "Mate, why are you doing that? You're not going to do anything." And he said, "Well, you're not going to make a difference." And he said, throws another one, and he said, "Well, I made a difference to that one." When he throws it back when the boy throws it back in the sea. And it's a bit like that, when you get, we've had zero expectations with this podcast from the outset, but we hoped that it would impact people positively. And when we get feedback where it is actually impacting a cross section of people, whether they're supportive parents, whether they're aspirational players, whether they're seasoned pros, it's really fulfilling and rewarding, isn't it? And that's thanks for that feedback. Really appreciate it.
No, it's brilliant, Ben, and just thanks to you as well, man. I'm really enjoying this space with you, and like we've said on various occasions, we are passionate about what we do, and being on this podcast is just a great opportunity for us also to not just share our opinions, but our point of views, and we try to be fair towards everybody, and not just going out there and trying to create viral hooks and all these type of things like a lot of people do. We do our best to be authentic on this pod. But Ben, we spoke yesterday, and you were quite passionate about this topic, and it's something which we came across in the podcast with Corné Krige, former Springbok captain, and man, it was impressive, realizing that guy at the age of 4 going to a boarding school. That's another topic on its own.
Yeah.
But he mentioned something that your title doesn't define you, or that your title shouldn't be the sole source of your identity, if I can put it that way. It's maybe not the exact words that he used, but why were you so passionate about this, and why did you want to talk about it today?
He spoke about so many elements to that, and he sort of referenced it as well, but in a really humble way. Not so when I brought stuff up, he just then deflected and started speaking about Rassie Erasmus, and he's just, this humility came through. And it was not false. You can tell it's not false. And he mentioned his 50th birthday, which he recently had. And at his 50th birthday, his old school friends are there, and his old Technicon friends are there. And you could tell he's just a guy who is he's just grounded. And I no doubt his wife has helped him do that, and his parents have helped him with that, and being at the school that you guys went to had a huge influence on you. I know it did on you, and every other Par Boys guy that I've met has been of a certain type of person, and it clearly did on Corné as well. But when he was speaking, and he said, that was just my title. I was the Springbok captain. It reminded me of this story that I'd remember hearing from Simon Sinek, the author from Start With Why and Eat Leaders Eat Last. I'd heard him speak, and as Corné was talking, it just reminded me of this story. And the story that I mentioned to you is, and Simon Sinek tells it, is he talks about there's this Undersecretary of Defense in America, and he's speaking at a conference. And as he's speaking at this conference, the Undersecretary of Defense pauses, and he's the former Undersecretary, sorry, I should say, and he pauses, and he goes off script, and he looks down at the cup of coffee he's holding in a plastic cup, and he says, last year I spoke at this conference as well, but last year I was the Undersecretary of Defense, not the former Undersecretary of Defense. Last year, they booked my flights, I flew business. When I landed, there was a limo waiting for me. As we drove to the hotel, I walked straight in. They'd already checked me in. Beautiful room. I came down the next day, guy waiting for me in the lobby, drove me. I went to the back entrance, the private entrance, straight into the green room. As I walked in, someone gave me this beautiful cup of coffee in this beautiful ceramic cup. This year, I'm the former Undersecretary. I'm still speaking at the same conference. I flew coach, which is economy. I flew coach. I got to the hotel. I checked myself in, went up to my room. The next morning I came down. I got a taxi. I went to the front entrance of this building. I had to find my way through to the back of the backstage. I asked someone, can I have a cup of coffee? They pointed to the machine in the corner, and I poured myself this filtered coffee into this styrofoam cup. I said, the message, the title is a title. It's not your identity. It's like, you are in this position for a period of time. Don't get confused. Don't take it to heart. Don't let it become your identity. And, I'm still doing this, but that was for the position. That wasn't for me. And it reminded me so much of Corné, reminded me of that story as he was speaking. It's just like, yeah, I was the custodian. I was the Springbok captain for a period of time. I was the custodian. Yes, I got to do crazy things like speak to Nelson Mandela and on a regular basis, and got to do amazing things with my family and with my friends, and we got given loads of amazing things. But I didn't get confused. It didn't become my identity. I'm just this guy who goes back to his family, moves on, played a bit of rugby, ran around a field, and then moves on to the next sphere of my life. And I just thought, wow, it just really resonated with me as he spoke about that. And I thought it was powerful, and as we spoke about, it was pretty impactful.
No, definitely. I actually enjoyed that story, and you told it to me. Yes, that definitely resonated, Ben, because there's so many different metaphors in this theme, in the sense of it to a specific role, and it takes me back, as a rugby player, and a simple thing. If I needed tickets for the game, I just asked the team manager or asked the club or whoever's in charge, get the tickets. 5, yeah, 5. Okay, good. Now today I've got to pay for my tickets.
Yeah.
or I gotta beg some players. Listen, can you sort me out with a ticket or two? And this is a bit off topic, but it really made me appreciate so much more the people that support us, the supporters, the rugby supporters, the amount of money they're investing, and they take their whole families to go watch a test match. And, just on that note, just want to say thanks to everybody that has supported us in our era, but also those people that continue to support rugby players, because without you it wouldn't be possible. But Ben, I actually found my notes here, and I think what was mentioned in the podcast with Corné was never attach your identity to your role, whether it's a Springbok captain or a business position. I think that's very important. And, he says here, a title can be taken away at any time through injury, selection changes, or life events. And that is so true. And in
Yeah.
taking the current position where I'm at now, right, Ben, I'm in a transition phase. I'm in between coaching jobs, preparing for that next opportunity. Super excited, though, for what's lying ahead and what's going next. I had to make a big call at the end of the season last year. But if my title, top 14 scrum coach of La Rochelle, if that defined my identity, man, I would have been lost right now. I would have been lost. That never defined me. That was a part of me. Even as a rugby player, being Gurthro Steenkamp, the Springbok, the Toulouse player, the Bulls player, that was just a part of me. And I think that's where the danger comes in. And I think that what Corné was trying to warn us, if you're going to be fueled by this title, if that becomes your sense of being, that can be taken away from you, just
100%.
like that. And then you can find yourself in a state of depression. You can find yourself completely lost. But yeah, man, that's so powerful. But I think at the end of the day, it's just a lesson of humility, if you have to put it that way.
Yeah, and it's like one of those things. I mean, I was writing posts about this and trying to summarize it for people on LinkedIn and things like that. And it's, without sounding cheesy again, it's, to me, it's just humanity. It's just being a good person. It's just, and that's what really shone through. So when I wrote the post, and I'm like one of rugby's great leaders, it felt a bit shallow and not enough, to say that, because he's just a good human, a good man, a good person. And I think you've got to be authentic, and people can see when that's not authentic. When we've both been in environments where the coach is saying, "Oh, we're a family, we're a family," and then, something happens, and no, we're not a family, we don't. And it's very shallow. And you could see that he was genuine when he spoke about that. And I think I might be wrong, so someone correct me if I'm mistaken, but I was fortunate enough to play with Francois Pegna at Saracens. And Francois was a very, very impressive individual, or is I haven't seen him for years, but is a very impressive individual. And if I'm not, people, when you think of him, you think of holding the 1995 Webb Ellis Trophy up in Ellis Park, William Webb Ellis Trophy, and Nelson Mandela's there, and you think of that, and you think of this superb leader, and the title is Springbok captain, and the Rainbow Nation, and all these types of things, which are true and powerful. But I'm pretty sure his last Springbok cap, he was stretchered off. He didn't go, and he just went out, and he was stretchered off, and he was never picked again. And that was the end of his career. And if he had held on to that identity, I am the Springbok captain, I am the, then he'd probably be still living in that moment, dining out on that moment, or trying to dine out on that moment. But it's one of those things where, actually, that was my role I played. I was a custodian for a period of time, and then I handed it on to the likes of Corné and somebody else, and then whoever it would be next, Andre Vos or whoever it is. So I was just reminded of those people who are very impressive when they don't get fixated on identity, because it's so dangerous. And you and I have both seen it when it goes badly, especially when people transition out of the game and they've been a well-known player, and they're not able mentally to transition to that new phase of their life.
Yeah, I think it's so important. I think what we're trying to get across as well, there are different layers to this topic, Ben, because we do see people that kind of reach a state of arrogance due to their title. And I've seen this before, and I've had loads of experience going into the corporate space and going and doing seminars, team building session workshops, and all around the theme about not just team building and team coaching, but how to build strong, robust teams to have that sustainable performance, Ben. And I remember years ago, it was one manager. He was just so stubborn in the meetings we were having. We were trying to find solution, trying to create a space. We say in French, espace de parole. So that means they have a space where everybody can speak their mind without being judged. That they can just share what they feel or share what they think so that we can work towards finding a solution, to optimize the performance of the company. And he just wasn't listening. And he would constantly justify his opinion, but I'm the boss. I'm the manager. You work below me. Wow. So that line of thinking, it's so toxic. And you're actually creating a fake version of yourself, and you think you can justify yourself because of your title. Yeah. And we see true leadership. And I'll use this guy as an example, someone that started out as a youngster, and who I've always massively respect, Siya Kolisi, to see the person that he's become. So he could have gone on this, how can I say, this path. I'm the black Springbok South Africa captain, all right, South African captain, Springbok captain. And he can milk it as far as he wants, all right? But what did he do? If you look at the success stories of 2019 World Cup, 2023, and my apologies to the audience, I'm not trying to rub it in as a South African. It's something which is close to home and something which I've experienced firsthand. I've seen. He relied on guys like Eben Etzebeth, Andre Pollard. He's got all these amazing players, Loot de Jager. He's got this key Kobus Reinach. He's got all these key players, and he's created a space where Dwayne Vermeulen in the World Cup as well. And he's relied on other players as well. And we saw that come through in the episode with Victor Matfield as well. Victor relied on Fourie du Preez. He relied on Bakkies, Brian Abana, before he left us to go to the Stormers. And the same with John Smith. John Smith, Springbok captain. You have in a team Fourie du Preez, Victor Matfield, Bakkies Botha, Mornay Steyn, Brian Abana. You can't have that arrogance and say, I'm the captain, what I say goes. So I think it's also important because titles are given to us and it's temporary. But the person that you are, the values that you showcase, that's eternal. I think that's very important because that comes on to another topic, and I'm going to leave it over to you.
There's so many. Let's go on, Karen.
Let me finish up this one because this is something which was said and which is very important, is that basically you can't let you sacrifice what you stand for or sacrifice your values for personal ambition or personal gain.
Yeah, I mean, there were so many. So there's so many things you just said that are so powerful. I mean, coming back to the first point about leadership generally, those leaders like you mentioned, John Smith and all these other people who are, they know that they can. You can delegate. You can get the best out of everybody. One person isn't the all-knowing guru, and that's a really dangerous space to be. But it doesn't. It's toxic. It doesn't let people feel heard. It doesn't empower people. It's sort of a micromanagement mindset. In whatever walk of life, you're not going to get the best out of people. And when you talk about and you reference Siya Kolisi, for example, I just think servant leadership. He is there to serve the people. That's his mindset still. And you and I have been around enough successful people, and I've seen it because I'm not, I guess, as young as I once. I'm sort of older and wiser now, I think. I'm almost in my 50th year now. Okay, so I've seen it both ways. I've seen it when these people are on the upward trajectory, and there's that quote, isn't there, that the people you see on the way up are the same people you see on the way down. Yeah, so you're going to bump into the same people. So you might be thinking and they're harder to get hold of. They're being successful, and I get we get busy and we get other lives going on. But you've got to remain humble because you're going to see those. You're going to bump into the same people on the way down, and I've experienced that both ways. I've seen people on this path, on this trajectory upwards, and then they've gone quiet for a couple of years, and they have achieved something which is just, let's be honest, it's just chasing a ball around a field, or running really fast, or whatever it is, And then you bump into them a couple of years later when they're just getting on the train with you. They're just doing the normal thing. They're having to queue up with everybody else. They're also hitting up old teammates for tickets for the match. And suddenly they're much more available. Suddenly they're reaching out to you. Oh, can I buy you a coffee and speak to you about the network? Just remember, and so that humility. And the second point, sorry, I could talk for hours about that, obviously, and I think we both could, because we've seen it in so many different shapes and forms. The second point I thought was so impactful that Corné mentioned as well. Don't compromise your principles, basically.
Yeah.
And we get caught up because it's a lifelong achievement. He mentioned it. He compared it to the Olympics. It's something you've been training for your whole life. As a South African boy growing up, you want to be a Springbok. If you can be a Springbok, if you can be the captain of the Springboks and then go to a World Cup, it's very hard. But to not compromise the bigger things is something that I think in life we often face, regardless of what walk of life we're in. And you get asked these small, and it's often the thin end of the wedge, isn't it? It's just at first, It's like, oh, do you mind doing this? Do you mind doing that? And you can compromise, and before you know it, it can be a very big thing that you're willing to compromise. Oh, don't worry, I'll put these other people first. I won't, don't worry about it. And I like that he mentioned that, but it's very difficult to do sometimes.
I just want to touch base on 2 points, Ben, because it's just to kind of like reiterate what you said. You're talking about that whole journey, you cross people as you're going up and you cross people as you're going down. And it's quite interesting because we've seen it on various podcasts, and I think Corné mentioned, and other guests on our pod mentioned it as well. When you're talking with your friends at school or your friends, when you are that big rugby player, and I think this is an important lesson to all the rugby players listening, current and, up and coming. You think you're the man or the woman, all right? You think you're everything. And you got a mate, he's just starting out, it's a job, and it's just in sales. And then you stop. And then you're like on your way down, and he's on his way up. And, that was so hard to see how friends, family members, how well they're doing, in the sense of, they've worked for years to get where they are. They got these great jobs, and, that's a huge shock. And it's like you're starting at the bottom again. And this is why this topic is so important. You can't let your identity be linked to the title that you have, or that role which you have, that is so important. I'll use this for example. My younger brother, my only brother, Jacques, he's 10 years younger than me. All right. He disrupted one of my best holidays ever in Mossel Bay years ago when he decided to come into. No, I'm joking. But for example, when I was playing, he was always there at the games, coming to support. In the beginning, he was a student, and then he started working. And now going back, I'm in awe of what he's achieved. He's got this great job, and to see the systems he has built in the company, the amount of people he has to work with, the responsibilities he has. He's getting up at 4 a.m, going to train at 4:30, at work just after 6, and he comes back home and just to see his work ethic, I'm like, wow, that's good. That's impressive.
Yeah.
And then it gets me thinking, okay, I'm on a new journey. Like, I'm still not yet where I want to be in terms of coaching. I want to coach a pack of forwards. I want to coach a team one day, and it just comes down to what you just said. You're always going to cross paths, and that's why you can't let your title define you, which is very important. And then there's something else which you just mentioned, and it's coming down to not sacrificing your core values and your principles for ambition. And we've seen this happen, whether it's in the corporate space, Ben, or in elite sports. It happens. I'm always shocked when I hear these stories of teams, staff members talking behind each other's back. Another guy saying something to the president, and then next minute you see he's the head coach, and the head coach got sacked. They don't have each other's back. That's and that's the great thing which I can say about, with La Rochelle last year. We've had one of our toughest seasons. And during that time, everybody stayed connected, the staff, we supported each other, we helped each other. There could have been potential opportunities. Guys could have crossed each other. And even in my career as a coach, I've seen opportunities. If I really wanted to push my personal gain, I could have done so. I could have benefited from it, but I would have sacrificed my principles for that. And I think that's something important we need to keep in mind. What type of human being are you at the end of the day? Are you that person that's going to go all out for personal gain, do whatever is necessary, sacrifice your principles? But so many lessons, man. That was so brilliant as well with Corné.
Yeah, there were, mate, some great points there. And I've had that similar situation, and I've had the opportunity to compromise. And sometimes we get it wrong because we're just working so hard towards something. But it's very, very difficult. And as a coach, I've had the opportunity. And, that's one of the lessons from Corné as well. He was going through a really tough time as captain. He didn't say this, so I'm not going to put words in his mouth, but he didn't necessarily agree with the leadership around him, with the coach and other people. And obviously it's Camp Stoldrud. He didn't agree with that. But he was very humble and he presented a united front. So he, to sail through those troubled waters and stay loyal within the organization and not throw your boss or one of your other people under the bus is a very, very difficult thing to do, because you have to bear a lot of the burden yourself. You have to have very big shoulders. And he did that, I thought, remarkably well. You didn't get him coming out or doing. There was no leak to the press about how he wasn't happy or what he actually thought. Or he presented this united front, but then would have the private conversations in behind closed doors with the other people. And that's the same sort of thing. You'll get opportunities to compromise, and he didn't. And I think, just to boil it down as well, the bit of advice I think you and I would give professional players in this situation, and mate, jump in any time, but get out of the bubble. Don't just be in the bubble, surrounding yourself with this echo chamber of people who basically blow, they just kiss your backside the whole time and just tell you how good you are the whole time. And it's just people you just get out of that comfort zone. Go and do even work experience somewhere. Go and be the lowest guy on a rung somewhere and go and do some work experience. Give yourself perspective on, even if you're not ever going to work in that environment, but it will give you an opportunity to get to understand that guy pays my wage because he is the guy that pays for the tickets. He buys the jersey. He travels to the away games and stands in the rain, travels an hour on the way on a train. He then stands and watches for 2 hours in the rain, and then he gets back late at night or whatever it is. They're the guys that pay my wage, and it would give you a different perspective, and that will only help you. But I would really advise, get out of your comfort zone, get out of your bubble and get a bit of perspective. And it will definitely help you with dealing with this and transitioning when you do actually finish playing.
Yeah, man, I totally agree with you that if it's one thing I wish I did more of, obviously I had some great relationships with the sponsors of the teams that I worked with. And, it was great, but I could have done more. And only towards the end of my career, then I really started spending time with the sponsors in their environment, where if I have to take it back, one of my good friends, Francois Boudet, he was director of a big telecommunications company in France. And, he helped me. I didn't even know that it was something I wanted to do in the corporate space, sharing my story, talking about how to build strong, robust and resilient teams. I didn't know it. And it started simple. Ben, I just went to go, I wanted to see what he's doing. He invited me, said, would you just come have a quick chat with my team, just come have lunch with us, have a coffee. It was very informal. And it was brilliant to see what everybody was doing, how everybody was focused on their goals and what they wanted to achieve as a massive company, and spoke to them. And it was like my first time I ever did it. And afterwards you said, you know what, G, you got something there. You have a skill there. Yes, it's not perfect yet. You still have lots of work. There are things that are on top of it, I spoke in French, Ben, and I think that was in 2017. So what, 8 years
That's
ago?
awesome. Well done,
So
man.
I wasn't that
That's getting out of
confident
your
yet.
comfort zone. That's what we talk
Yes, I
about.
wasn't even confident speaking
Yeah.
in French, and even today I still make mistakes, but who cares? But at least people
Yeah.
understand me. But you got to spend time with you got to get out of your bubble, and I see a lot of players, you can be obsessed with, you say a lot of players sometimes they focus on their holiday trips or buying a nice house, all this. That's not getting out of your bubble. Getting out of your bubble is seeing what other people are doing, what the trenches are looking like for everyday human beings,
Yeah.
purpose-driven human.
That's
I
good.
just thought about it now, Ben. We got the November Test matches coming up, South Africa, and I would love to take, my family to go watch a Test match. And I started doing the calculations. I was like, okay, 150 euros at least a ticket. All right, we are four. That's 600 euros. Traveling costs. Okay, if we go by car, it's going to save us money. 300 euros. 900 euros. Then it's accommodation. Then it's food. Over 1,000 euros for one game. Okay, and hold your horses, everybody. If you don't, please don't misinterpret my words. I'm not here to talk about ticket prices or anything like that. There's a lot of people talking. I'm not here to talk about that. But I just want to, it kind of, how can I say, confirms what I spoke about earlier, the efforts of the supported, the financial efforts, sacrificing their time, sacrificing their means to support the team that they love, supporting the players that they love. So I think it's important that players really, really, they need to get out of that bubble. But Ben, I just want to switch topic because there's another layer which we haven't really touched base on. Maybe it's not the right time, but I just want to bring it in there. We spoke about the title not defining, and that's the same when it applies to someone either just starting out or you're not yet in the position that you want to be, whether it's in a rugby team or whether it's a corporate player. Don't let that define you. For example, if you're just starting out as an assistant coach or a young coach or academy coach, doesn't mean you're any less than young. You can one day become a head coach. A great example, Ben, is Johan van Gaal. With Bath, they just recently won the premiership. He started out as our video analyst at the Bulls. And I think for about 2 years, he was our video analyst. And then we came back one season, boom, he's the forwards coach. And then accelerate forwards coach, assistant Springbok coach, and he's head coach at Munster and now at Bath. So if he allowed being a video analyst to define the human being that he is, and we've listened to some of his podcasts recently on the Jim Hamilton show, and he's also been on Behind the Rack podcast with Joan de Jong and Rudy Page. Unbelievable guys. Guys, must you still enjoyed that chat of ours. And he spoke about what he was doing. He was just constantly learning, writing things down, reviewing his day, and you could see that he never allowed that title to define him. And even today, he was my coach. And back in the day, you could say I was in the prime of my career. And now, in a way, roles have changed. He's in the prime of his coaching career. But I can send him a WhatsApp. I can say, hey, Johan, how's it going? I call him on his nickname. I'm not going to say what the nickname is here on the podcast. But actually, no, this is actually what happened, Ben. I replied a message, hey, Johan, how's it going? Looking well done on the championship. Great stuff. Proud of you. Awesome stuff. Great to connect at some stage. And he actually replied. And then at the bottom, instead of putting his name, he put down his nickname, which we called him back in the day. So this is a side of humility, man. But yeah, I think that's it. The message I'm trying to get across, Ben. Don't let your title define you. If you're starting out, things can evolve. That shouldn't be giving you or valuing yourself, if I can put it that way.
Okay, I know we're a bit tight on time, but a couple of points because there's stuff in this same area. Okay, so when you were speaking just now, you reminded me of Victor Matfield when we interviewed Victor. His title, he was going in as going to be the next CEO when he stopped playing. That didn't stop him putting the chairs away. He's there and he's putting the chairs away because he's learning the job. So he wasn't too big for that job. He wasn't too big, and I've seen it. I've actually seen it in the workplace. Myself when I went to work, I almost paused because I almost didn't share this. When I went to work with my old man in Dubai in the family business, I'm there and there's a few people employed and there's lots going on. But there's my dad in his, just sweeping the floor, and he's just saying, okay, nothing's below me. I'm the guy sweeping the floor. It was, and it's just, that example, and that sets the standard, I think, and that sets the tone. But on the other way of looking at it as well is, I'm in a junior position, but that doesn't mean I'm, maybe I remember being an analyst with England Sevens, and we got a tournament away, and I know that straight from the tournament we're going straight to the airport because we haven't got any time. And I was like, well, the boys are going to be starving. So then I went off and I've basically found, because there was no food prepared and they weren't going to eat. And then we had the tournament. It was a real short turnaround because the following weekend we had a tournament. We were flying, and then they had to do the recovery. We weren't going to have many training days. So I basically went, and I'm like, but I'm the analyst. I'm doing this. I'm analysing the matches. I was like, but the boys are going to be hungry and nobody's got them any food. So I went and basically, off my own back, and I'm only selling this story now, and I'm trying to big myself up. It's like 15 years ago. But I went and sourced food. I was like, okay, well, what can I find? And so I found these baguettes. I chopped them up, and I made like 30 baguettes quickly in between like morning session and the matches, And so that as the boys came off, they had these baguettes ready for them so they could eat them on the way to the airport. Now, I didn't also label I was the guy that made them. I've never told that story before, so that if any of them listen to this, they won't know that they will hear that for the first time. But it was just like, you just do what's necessary for the team. You pick up the broom, or you put the chairs away like Victor did. You're not, is anybody noticing or anything like this? You just do whatever. It's not about the title. I'm always reluctant to share stuff like that about myself, to be honest with you,
No, thanks for sharing that, man. And I want to mention this. I didn't reply it, but your dad dropped us a message on LinkedIn on one of our podcast episodes. So,
nice.
Yeah, if you can just pass the message on to your dad, thanks. I appreciate his support as well. And
he'll be listening, mate. Don't worry.
Yeah. It's always great getting that validation from a family member as well. And it'll be great eventually to meet your dad one day in person as well.
Definitely.
Awesome.
That'll be soon, bro.
But and to finish this off, we're going to wrap it because otherwise we're going to go on and on. You're talking about that. We're talking about don't let your title define you. And, that's what's happened at the Springboks. I've seen it firsthand. You got head of media manager, communications manager, filling up water bottles, carrying
That's exactly it.
Heat shields. Everybody, and it comes down to what Andy also said, everybody's just pitching in. You got your role. But if you got free time to spare, you go out and help. And it also ties in what we said, leaders are here to serve. You need to, and that's what we're trying to do, Ben, through this podcast as well, sharing our passion. But yeah, before we sign a bit, I think it's important to mention as well, both of us right now, we have communities on School. All right, it's an unbelievable platform, guys, that allows us to connect with you. Ben is creating his own courses. He's doing a lot of mentorships on his own, and he will talk more about what he's sharing and where he's going. And myself, I'm sharing, actually at the time of this podcast recording, I'm sharing a series of setup tips for props. So guys, if you want to get access to my community, it's very simple. Go to my Instagram page and just DM the words School, SKOOL, and I'll send you the link. And you can do exactly the same. You can just send School or a buzzword or a keyword to Ben. But Ben, if you maybe just want to give some insights in terms of what you're doing in your community at the moment.
Yeah, it's early days, isn't it? But we're really both excited about being on School. It's a facility it's a platform that have multiple communities on, so we can really reach people. It's interactive. We can get feedback about the podcast, but also about we can, post on the platform. There's a classroom where you can host courses and you can post video content so that people can go on there and they can see stuff about tackle technique, or they can see defensive sessions, or they can see me answering questions. So you can post a question on there and I can answer it. So last week, for example, I got asked about defensive strategy, and I was able to give a proper detailed reply in video format that allowed me to go into, okay, depends what game model you're building and what your personnel is like, if they're experienced and how conditioned they are, and these are the pros and cons of doing different things. So it's this interactive environment, but it's not just about you and me doing that, it's about the community. It's free to join. There are different tiers, and if you want one-to-one coaching, and that's something we can talk about separately, but the community itself is free, so we can really help and provide that service to as many people as possible, whether you're an aspirational coach or a parent who wants to understand what their child can do better or differently, or how they can be safer, whatever it is. So it's exciting. I'm really genuinely excited about it, and it's a space where we can get to know also what you want to hear. What can we do like this that's going to actually serve you better?
Brilliant, Ben. I'm really looking forward to the space and, connecting with the people, getting to know the people as well. It's unbelievable, the people that support us, the people that are, our so-called ambassadors and, sharing all our content. So thanks for that, guys. But guys, before we sign off, we have realized that a lot of you are watching our episodes on YouTube or Spotify, or listening it to on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, but you are not subscribe to our show. So please like, follow, and subscribe. We would appreciate that. Would mean the world to us and will allow us to have an unbelievable guest, and it also allow us to sacrifice our time to do this type of podcast and make sure we're giving you guys quality content. But most importantly, we value your feedback. Your feedback means the world to us, good or bad, it doesn't matter. We want honest feedback because we want to evolve as podcast hosts, but also getting to know what you like. So, for example, if you're on YouTube or Spotify and there's something which resonated with you, leave a comment, and let us know, and we will do our best to reply to that in a timely manner. Ben, brother, it's been a privilege as always. Really enjoyed this, chatting with you, enjoying the space with you, my man. But I need to get going. I've got a busy day ahead of me. I need to go on a run. I need to clean my flat. I need to do some more work. And then I got a date with my youngest daughter tonight. So we're going to eat at one of our favorite places in La Rochelle. So looking forward to that.
No, sounds good. Well, enjoy, buddy. Great chatting.
Oh, awesome. All right, guys. Thanks for everything, and hope you guys have an unbelievable day or evening wherever you are in the world. Ciao, ciao.